I wish I would have listened to my grandfather. Grandson, the stuff you think is important is really not that important. I think your willingness to let go will actually give you the ability to lead at a way more effective level.
Are there ever people that you've had to let go?
Oh man, this is a hard one. Hey, what's up, guys? I want to welcome you back to another episode of the New Rules Podcast. It is your boy, Adrian here, and I am joined by the one, the only, our extravagant co-host, Miss Brianna Clark. Breezy, what's happening?
Not much, we just had a day of a lot of talking and a lot of listening, and here we are doing our favorite thing ever.
It is.
So I'm excited for today.
Yeah, a lot of work today, a lot of client work we did today, and so, it's been a good day. Well, if you're new here to the New Rules community, we're excited that you've joined us. We exist here on the New Rules Pod to help really people to unlock authenticity. We believe authenticity leads to human flourishing, and because of that, we want to help people actually write new rules. We believe that to live an authentic life, you're going to have to live according to the rules that are meant for you. And to do that, many times you're going to have to write new ones. And so we're excited. We talk on all different types of topics, but main thing is really this idea of leadership and helping people grow to be all that they've actually been called to be. And so, again, if this podcast is helpful for you, make sure you like, you subscribe, you see any of our reels come across your way, make sure you share. We really do appreciate it. And at this time, Bree, let's jump right into the pod, and it is time for Air It Out. So, Bree, what you trying to get off your chest? What you got to air out today?
Okay, so today is April 19th. As everybody knows.
420 coming up.
Okay, that's not what I was going to say. But what a great shout out. Yesterday was April 18th, a.k.a. tax day, when all the taxes were due. And this is my first time really paying taxes as an adult with an adult job in an adult tax bracket. And under the new administration, it's my first time, as an adult, seeing how much changes as administration changes when it comes to, taxes and Social Security and, Medicare, and how that actually starts to practically play out.
Yeah.
Man, I had to pay a lot of money.
Hey.
I had to pay a lot of money.
Everybody wants to hustle and make money. You listen, big girl money got big girl problems.
You
now.
start making money and you pay it out. You really do. You really do.
Oh man, I wish I could say that I'm oh man, Brie, I feel bad. No, I'm really enjoying this. I'm really enjoying
your
the pain.
tax bill, mine is nothing. My tax bill is absolutely probably not even a third of your tax bill. Because it's different when you're an owner.
Dude,
it's different whenever you actually own something. The amount that you have to pay is also just insane.
So your air it out is just the amount of taxes, huh? Just taxes. That's your air out today. It's the Uncle Sam, right? Uncle Sam can get both.
It's just, to me, it's more so, not much is getting better. So where's my money going? What is it actually? I don't mind. It's not the amount that I'm paying, really.
Yeah.
It's more so that, and it's not even, whatever they decide to use the funds for.
Yeah.
That, I'm it is what it is. If it's going to, just at least let the thing be, productive.
Yeah.
And nobody who's ever been in administration, regardless of the party, I feel ends up using it towards something
that's actually helpful and beneficial.
Right. And it's no, I understand that not everybody would choose if they got to pocket that money. Not everybody would choose to give it away to somewhere that's really going to make an impact.
Yep.
But for me personally, I'm no. I know a lot of places that I could have given that money to.
Yeah.
That I know is really doing something, and so it's just sad. It's just sad that I'm giving it. I'm I don't know really where it's going, what kind of change it is actually going to make. Whereas for me, if I were to keep it, I would choose to do that.
Yeah. There we go. Grady. Bree's getting some little political views now. You know what I'm saying? Hey, next thing you know, Bree gonna be in them Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan pods next.
No. Listen, my pride would not allow me. I have seen some Jordan Peterson stuff.
Yeah, no.
But
no, it's all good. No, I think having those conversations are real now, because when you start paying taxes, you start seeing what it's going to, and honestly, that's always been my thing. It doesn't matter Republican or Democrat. The bottom line is this: I don't think anybody's done a great job, and I don't think anybody's really pushing to where there's no competition. That's the thing. There's no competition in the government sector. So like, you can kind of suck and still you're getting paid. You're still gonna get. It's gonna be in the budget. It's gonna be whatever. And so, yeah. I mean, but again, man, welcome to adulthood, Bree. I really do. I have empathy for that. That's a tough pill to swallow when you start having to pay taxes, man. So, but you know what though? But it also should be take a bow. Speaks to, you know what I'm saying? You doing really well at this age, 23. You know what I'm saying? Hustling, leading.
This is true.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah,
so
I had to remind myself, like, this is why I have a savings.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough to have one. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I am really grateful for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Well, my aired out is this. Mine is not. Bree, you were kind of calm on your aired out. Very nice, very whatever. Mine's not. I kind of got in a back and forth on Twitter the other day. Again, Twitter fingers. Trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers, right? So I'm on Twitter the other day, and I tweet something, and I just simply said this. I'm like, man, I was like, I hope I want woke to go somewhere, the word woke to go somewhere and die. Now, what I meant by that is I'm just tired of hearing the word woke, whether if it's from the left, from the right, everything being thrown into that basket. And so then, of course, a good friend of mine, Jeff Cameron, big radio personality, Jeff actually liked it and made a comment. And so, boy, after that happened, boy, I tell you what, the Freedom Fighter 485 on on Twitter with the Eagle Abbeys were deep in my comments. And the one thing, this is what I'm hearing out, the guy said to me, because I do I do a basketball analysis, and this whole thing, man, stick to sports, stick to basketball. And here's been my issue when someone says that. I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't realize your job at Ace Hardware now made you a political analyst. It's like they say that to people in sports, but I'm like, what do you do? Most of the people who say that, you're not doing any job that makes you actually like you're not a politician. You're probably not a lobbyist. You're not involved in government. So what gives you the right? And what it is, it's incredibly disrespectful to athletes because it's like or to anybody in any type of other vein. Because what if I said, like me saying that about the dude at Ace Hardware, people would get so offended by that. I hope they do get offended by that because it's like, yo, I'm more than just doing sports analysis. I actually listen to a lot of stuff dealing with global politics and global trends. So I actually think I have an informed thought. But for me, it was my personal thought as well. And it's really interesting. All those who care about freedom of speech and everything like that really don't like when you have freedom of speech about something they don't like. And that's why I always keep saying both sides are full of it. Because in the end, you don't care about freedom of speech. You only care about freedom of speech for you and for the things you care about. So let me say what I want to say, and you get back to stacking lumber, 84 lumber or Ace Hardware, which again, that's your thing. And I'm not saying that like that's a bad job, but don't diminish me as that's what pissed me off. Don't think that I'm not an intelligent human because actually I do basketball commentating, all right? So whoever that was who said that, and again, it's always the people who don't have their real picture in the profile. It's always they got a sports team or an eagle or an American flag or Donald Trump or somebody else in their Twitter profile. It's never anybody with their actual picture. Yo, put your real picture up. If you're gonna have all that Twitter bravado, put your real picture up so I can see it. So that's where I'm at, Bree. Did I just get myself fired today, Bree?
No,
okay.
No, I don't think so at all.
All right, listen, I'm usually a nice guy, but I cannot stand when people do stuff like that because it really is incredibly disrespectful because there's a lot of people, I don't care what you do, who actually do study this stuff and really do care about this and really have an opinion about it. And so, but I do want the word woke to go somewhere and die. It was actually something for black people, and then like everything else, somebody else takes it and they gentrify the word, and now the word is it's used. And you know what happens? They take something that is of black people that ends up hurting black people. So fun times. So, all right, with that being said, Bree, let's jump into the pod today. So, Bree, what do we got today?
Today, we are talking about letting go.
Today, the idea of letting go. And this topic of letting go especially has been something that I've been thinking a lot about because we are living in a world today where there's really... where I say because of the internet, there's no borders, right? You know, if you're a Korean kid, you can influence hip-hop culture in L.A. If you're someone who's living in L.A., you can impact people in Zimbabwe. There's like no borders anymore. The internet has kind of like made the world at some level borderless. Now, what do I mean by that, and why does that matter? It's because we have access to stuff, we actually start to live like we just try to hold on to everything. We feel like we can do everything all the time. And what I've come to realize is that it becomes to allow people as individuals, but also leaders, to not be effective because they feel like they can do everything all the time. I can hold 8 jobs. I can also have the incredible, most curated Instagram page. My TikTok feed is phenomenal. Man, my dogs are all eating organic food that I made. I'm able to pressure wash my house, do all the handy stuff. We all think we can be a great parent, be a great spouse, and on and on. And then people get disappointed when they start to suck at stuff. And I think that it's really affecting people. It's really affecting people. It's affecting the way they live, the way they lead, because they can't hold on. We have limited capacity as leaders. And so this idea of like actually being willing to let go, I think your willingness to let go will really be something that in the future will actually give you the ability to lead at a way more effective level.
So what do you think really keeps people holding on?
I really think that I think it's because we don't know what's important. I think in today's world, because everything's so hyper, it makes it feel like everything that's going on is important. That everything that you're talking about, every issue that you're dealing with, every idea that you have, every opportunity that you get is so important. And so now, because everything is important, nothing's important. So we feel like, okay, if this is important, so man, if this vacation with my friends is so important, or man, hey, this promotion is so important. Hey, this after work thing, this after work going to get these drinks at this function is so important. Everything's so important, nothing's important. And then what you do, you constantly just keep trying to do it because you don't have really any standard of what's important and what's not.
So how do you decide what is important?
I think it goes back to something we've talked about a ton, is really values. I think you have to understand what do you value. I think the second thing you have to do is you have to understand what season of life you're in. Because certain seasons of life you're in, like when you're in your 20s and 30s, in your 20s, you're really about just, you're learning, you're working, you're going for it. And so it may be where what's important for you right now is that at work, at your career, is the advancement there. So you may say, that's something there. At that point in time, it may be your friendships. It may be your family. It may be your body and getting in shape and exercising. It may be a hobby, whatever. It may be learning a different skill and craft. Whatever that is, it's understanding what season you're in. I think that's one of the ways you determine what season of life you're in, values, what season of life you're in. Then I think it's also understanding what's your end goal? We talk about scoreboard. What's the scoreboard? What's the end goal? Because when you start to understand your end goal, you begin to say, okay, this thing right here is important because it's going to help me do this. So for me, the idea of authenticity, the idea of developing leaders and stuff like that. So whenever I have the opportunity where I think it's going to help me grow in my development of people, it's going to help me grow in a greater level of authenticity, it's going to help me communicate about it, whatever, I can actually say, okay, that's important for me in this season. So I think you have to have bigger themes. And as you have bigger themes, understanding seasons, understanding values, that kind of helps you walk through it.
So how do you begin to understand something like seasons?
I think it's interesting. I think that you start from a really just kind of a macro level, like a higher level, right? So I was recently meeting with someone who's kind of become a mentor of mine, and he laid out this time. It was actually really interesting. He talks about in your first 30 years, when I say a macro level, your first 30 years, it's really about you're just learning, right? You're really learning. The second third of your life is about earning. You're just trying to earn. You know what I'm saying? And then he says the most important things, the last third of your life is about giving. What do you actually get? Not that you shouldn't learn and you shouldn't earn and give in all phases of life, but he said this becomes the primary. So I think from a macro level, you have to pull up and understand at this phase in my life, this is what's important. So for example, for some people, if you decide to have children at a young age, your kids, especially, your kids are going to be a really important part of your, that's going to be a big thing for you. If you decide in your 20s, we're going to have kids because later in life, we want to be able to have more freedom to do more stuff. So then you have to understand, then you can't have kids, I'm going to advance so fast in my career. Both parents are going to try to advance so fast in their career. On top of that, going still on vacations with my friends and do all the stuff we're going to do. And then we're going to be great cooks and we're going to do all this stuff. That's what I mean. You have to understand, one, really the macro level. Then when you bring down to the level, what's important to you in that season. And the other thing is, what opportunities do you have? Because sometimes what'll begin to let you know what season is what opportunities do you have. So I think about this, how did you decide that? Because right now in your 20s, it seems like one of the things that you decided to hold on to was work. Saying, okay, I'm going to really help go build something. What made you decide and realize that was what you should do?
I think that for me, a value that I had early on was competition.
Yep.
And at that point in my life, I'd kind of transitioned out of the sports world into the real world. And so I was really starting to think about what my goals were, what I wanted my life to be like as I kind of actually really started to enter into adulthood.
Yep.
And because competition is such a big thing for me, I am not okay with just being mediocre. And I think it's really important just to define even what that looks like for every person. But I knew that with anything that I was going to do, that I was going to take some level of hard work, because I didn't grow up at going to the best schools. I didn't grow up getting the best education. I didn't grow up getting taught the best social skills necessarily. Yeah. So I knew that, especially if I wasn't going to go to college, that I was going to need to commit, and it was going to take time for me to learn how to do those things. Yep. And then I also... I enjoy being ahead, and in order to do that, it just takes time. Yeah. So I knew that I was going to have to commit to something. Sometimes, too, it helps to know how long you need to do it, too. Sometimes you don't know that, and you can't figure that out. But I think it's like when you're running a race, you like to know how long you're running for. Like, am I running for a mile? Am I running 10 miles? Because then you know how to pace yourself. Yeah. And you're going to be able to supply yourself with more of what you need along the way to help you get to the end of the race. And so as much as you can figure out what that timeline looks like, I think is really good too. Yeah, no, it was good. And I think that, one of the things I know you did is like you took a risk at something. Mm-hmm. And so when you take a risk as well, it's like, I think sometimes people take risk and like, they don't factor in all of what could happen. You know what I mean? You took a risk at a season saying, all right, well, at least I'm young. If it doesn't work out, I can potentially go back to school. I can. So there was things you calculate, but also there was things that you decided to say, hey, in this season of my life, and also I know there's a lot of personal things you were working through. So there was a lot of times where you're like, oh, I had to, where friends were doing certain things to where your interpersonal stuff you were working through was something that you were like, this is so important to me that I may have to not go on this trip. I may have to spend more time to myself. And so I watched you kind of like to do that, to understand this is the season I'm in and what, like, I had to let this go in order to grab a hold of something. Yeah, I'd say for a long period of time, the two major focuses of mine were levels of emotional healing and wholeness, because that was super needed, and then also my professional life, which a lot of people think that you can't do at the same time, but you can. It's just that you have to choose what are the other things that you're going to kind of put aside. And to be clear, it's not that I didn't hang out with my friends. It's not that I didn't have deep friendships. But for me, I knew that I was going to have to do a lot of deep emotional work that was going to require a lot of time for me to be on my own. And then on the flip side of that, you can't go through something like that without feeling like you have a sense of purpose or something that you're at least creating every day. And so that's where some of the professional things came into. It was like it gave me a sense of drive and a sense of purpose and a place to compartmentalize every day. And I just had a belief that that's what I needed to do, and that I was going to stick it out until I felt like something needed to change. Yeah, it's really good. I think the next thing that I would ask you is what are the things that you hold on to, and how has that changed throughout the different seasons of your life? Yeah. I would say that for sure my faith is a big thing that in every season has been, since I was 19, has been something that that's something that I actually held on to. And so it's something that where it's center. So there's a lot of actual, things that I have to do, practices and things like that. Not that I, that I actually, when I say I have to, because I actually enjoy them, it helps me grow into a deeper relationship with God. I think, the other one is like what I like to call like my family and my friendships. I kind of see those together. Like that's where relationships, I would more say, is really important to me. I am a deeply relational person. So like having good friendships and relationships and with my family is super important to me. So that's a priority. And the third one that's kind of run all the way through is really the work that I do. Like it's really important to me. The meaningful work I do is very, very at a high regard to me. And so those are things in every season I feel like have kind of been there. I think in different seasons, for example, the business I was running, and we planned a church. Well, for about 5 years, I was still I had somebody kind of helping me run the business. And so I was spending probably 80% of my time helping build the church. So that was a season where I had to let go. And here's what I've learned. I let go of some of the work, but I did not let go of the results.
So I'm going to say it again, like I didn't let go of the results, but I let go of so I had somebody else helping me and was doing a good job. But see, for me, I expected, hey, well, I'm still doing the business, so we should be, 3Xing what we're doing. But we were growing by like 10% or 12%. So I didn't let go of the results. But on the church side, I was seeing 3, 4, 5X of growth. But I thought that I could grow everything all at the same thing. And that's the thing I think is really important, is that if you're choosing to focus on something, then if you're not going to have time on the other side, you're going to have to let go on the other side, the results. Not so much the thing, but also in your mind, the results. Because you may say, okay, I'm not going to work over here. But then also, you know what? Here's the thing. You may have to let go in the season because you're working, you're doing this, that the way that you normally work out and the normal where you were fit and you're in great shape, and now you're like, yo, I can't work at that level. So you know what's going to happen? I'm maybe not going to look the same I did or the level I want to. And most people get really frustrated because they don't let go of the results. And so I think that what's happened to me is like I had the big macro ones, but in the minor ones, it's more of like letting go. I thought really important of letting go the results of the things that I had to let go. I let go of them physically, but I did not let go of actual what I expected to happen.
So are there ever moments where you find yourself still to this day kind of beating yourself up about something that you haven't decided to prioritize?
What do you think? You're around me all the time.
Yes. But like most of the questions I ask, I already know the answer to.
Yeah, no, I for sure, 100%. Like right now, we are in a phase to where you know what, in 2020, 2021, when we started this business, and we put time into it, it took off. But I still was expecting, still being a lead pastor of a church, I was expecting that to grow too. And it grew, but not that much. It grew a little bit. Now I'm seeing church start to grow, and finally I got people in things. I got people in places now to really lead in both, who are really executing. And so I'm starting to see all those things grow. But yeah, I mean, here's the truth about it. Here's what's really hard for me. I know if I turn my attention fully, 100% to a church, I would pastor a church of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people instead of a church of 700 people. There's no doubt in my mind I would. I know if I fully turn all of my attention to this business, that instead of it taking us 3 years to probably where we're going to get to this year, clipping $1 million, that I think we probably could have clipped $1 million in year 2. But what I have to realize is that what I had to let go is the fact of those results, realizing what I held on to was the fact that I get to paint from a lot of different areas that I enjoy. So what I'm giving up is things I actually really enjoy. I love the ability of some of the things I get to do in the church space and some of the stuff I get to do in the business space. I've had to let that go. I've also had to let go of power, realizing that, hey, I can't just be like, man, I can't hold all the power. If I'm gonna like do these different things, I've got to let go of power. I've got to take someone and trust someone like yourself who's leading in the agency. I've got to trust someone like our guy Cody, what he's doing a lot in the church space. I got to trust our guy JT and what he's doing in the basketball skills space. I've got to trust people, and I've got to let go of power, which means I got to let them make decisions. That means financial things as well. And so, so I think that's kind of the process. But it's still hard. I mean, I want everything. I would like our agency right now to be a $10 million company, and McKinsey's coming in saying, how can we buy you? I want a church to be 5,000 people right now. I want Equal Shot to have 45 locations right now. But I'm always holding on to that. And I think some of that is kind of, as my good friend Michael Fly, who'll be on the pod at some point soon, always tells me, he's like, it's all about perspective. He always says perspective, Chief. It's understanding where you're at and realizing what you've done and celebrating the wins at times.
Mm-hmm. This is a little bit of a turn, but I know we're kind of talking about business right now, and there are a lot of leaders who listen to the podcast, people who run businesses themselves. And you've mentioned it a few times about how when you turn your attention from one business, it doesn't, you don't see the results in the way that you want them to. But a lot of the times, kind of like you just mentioned, they say, well, you should bring somebody in. You should bring somebody in to be able to fill that kind of gap for you. Yeah. What keeps you from spending the money to hire someone who could fulfill it in that way?
I think it's a couple things. I think it's depending on where the business is at. When you're a startup, it's kind of like, man, if you aren't going to go raise investor money, which I've never raised investor money, everything has been off my own dime or just straight sweat equity, right? Then, because somebody who could go do it at the level I could do it at, you're going to have to pay them a pretty penny and so you're going to have to go raise. So that's one reason why I didn't. The other reason too is I really believe as well is in developing people. So I look at you, for example, where, people would try to say, man, at that point in time, you were 20 or 21 when we first started. They're like, yo, what are you doing? But what it was is that I was heavily involved and you were just helping me be able to, execute. But now as we've grown it now, I've watched now 3 years into this to the level where you're at, and to where, man, a lot of the day-to-day stuff that we do, like you're the one integrating it. You're the one, the actual operations of it, you're doing it. And again, and like I said, for most people, they don't ever even make a profit in business. For us, we're about to be, hopefully by the end of this year, at $1 million. And it's like, and you're the one really doing this. But that took time of us working together, us doing it, your skills coming out, you putting in the hard work, you learning on the fly and whatever, and getting to that place. And so, I think that's where, for me, it's all about development. But also, man, when you find somebody at a level, they got to be on the same page with you. At the end of the day, sometimes, I could get somebody to help the business grow, but I'm going to be dealing with other headaches of them, like with completely different value systems, or completely they're willing to take certain clients on or do anything to make a dollar, versus there's only certain types of work that we want to do. So I think there's a lot of give and take kind of in that process.
The reason why I asked that question is because I think it's a very practical example to what you're talking about, because development is one of your values.
Yeah, 100%.
And so you consistently, in this situation, you could sacrifice maybe finances, or the growth that you want to see within a really short period of time, because developing people gives you that same sense of purpose and fulfillment inside, and so it's worth it to you. And so just to point out, that's an example of why having values is so important to you, so that at the end of the day you have a scoreboard to align something to.
No, it's really good. That's a very good catch. It is. I get really excited to watch people walk into what they're supposed to. Here's the thing. It's as valuable to me, more valuable to me than money. When I watch someone, when I'm able to create something that someone couldn't do on their own, but now they're actually walking in something and making impact and doing really great work with something they couldn't have created. To me, that's like the greatest joy. It's the greatest joy watching JT with Equal Shot Academy and watching him take something that was kind of like that we kind of started and was doing, and just watching him run with it, and just the development of it, or watching you, or watching Cody, and I can go on and on with people, watching guys like Derek and others who just have taken the work and they're just building the work. They're taking this thing and they're growing and developing. That is the greatest joy for me. Because I realize I feel like I'm doing something meaningful. I feel like I'm actually taking the skills and gifts that God has given me, and I'm using those in the earth. And so, and with that, development is such a value of mine. I mean, I feel like it is one of those things, if I'm not developing people, then I'm really violating my conscience when that happens.
So how did you figure that out?
What, values or? Specifically
development. Let's just play off of that one.
Yeah, I think, honestly, it was really, I think there's two ways I think it played out. I think one, it was a sovereign theme, right? Kind of like you find yourself, and next thing you know, you're like, man, how do I got this like younger person who's around me, or somebody. Even when I was a kid, I was always have like younger kids who would be around me, and you just end up just kind of them being around me, helping them kind of grow and develop. I started watching when I started doing my first business, basketball skill training. I started watching us do that, and then how it would work, and like all of a sudden, I'm like, man, I can actually develop them and help them figure out who they are. Another one is really, I just think that is this idea of power. I started realizing that, like, man, power, I started studying about power, and this was years ago. And what I realized about power is that power is actually really good if you give it away. It was never meant to be static, but to be given away. And so I realized that, man, one of the ways I give away power, because people say, well, I don't have any power because I don't, because normally what that means for people is that they don't have a position of authority in an organization, a company, nonprofit, whatever, they don't have like this title of whatever. But I think everybody has power. I think if you have breath in your lungs, there's levels of power you have. Mm-hmm. So I think you have knowledge, there's all types of skill sets. So what I started doing was like realizing, man, the skills and the things I had, that was power. And what I needed to do that is to give power away. So that became such a core thing. I wanted to always be a person who gave power away. I didn't want to hoard power, because like power that just stays static corrupts. So I wanted to give it away. And I think sometimes knowledge is power, right? The ability to create is power. And when you're just doing it for yourself and you're just doing it for what's best for you, it's going to eventually corrupt you.
Yeah. The next question that I would ask, in the terms of letting things go down that vein and having your priorities, are people ever included in that? Are there ever people that you've had to let go?
Oh, man. Yeah. And this is a hard one. Yeah, there's times where I had to let people go where I'm like, man, it was just, I was going in a direction. They were not going in that direction. We were still cool, but it was just one of those things where I knew before they knew, that we just kind of started drifting apart. Also, here's another one that's an interesting one about relationships, is not so much of letting go, but when you start to lead, right? When you're a leader or you're just a person who may have some influence, you start like getting people around you, relationships that want your time. And so like we all want to give our time away. We all want to do that. This is a story really important. Somebody who actually leads in one of the organizations that we run, this person came to me. He's like, man, I really feel like, man, I want to spend time. I want us to connect and da-da-da. Now, you have to understand, not only am I someone who's leading stuff, but also I'm known as a pastor. So that brings its own other context, for people and their brokenness. Like, you're a pastor, so you should spend time with everybody in the world. And I had to look this person in the eye, who was really cool, and I really liked him. I says, hey, if we're going to have a relationship, it's going to be you having to pursue me to be in this relationship, because if I do that, then these relationships that are very important to me, I'm not saying you're not, but these are important to me, I will not be able to be what I need to be if I do this. Mm-hmm. And like when they heard it, it was hard truth. And man, the first initial thing, they felt some type of way about it, but they really got it. And this person did. And now this person, actually, we are super close. We spent a lot of time together, but I had to say, no, I can't let go of these relationships. Mm-hmm. Because I think we end up doing that, especially for people who lead. They end up thinking, man, I can't say no. And I think the best thing is to be truthful, because what you're going to do, you feel like you're going to disappoint them, or you're going to come off as a prick if you say, yeah, sorry, Chief, I can't do that. But here's the thing. You're just not prolonging being a prick. That's it. You're just literally prolonging it, because you know that you don't have the capacity to have that relationship. So you have to let that go in order to hold on to the relationships that actually matter to you. Or what you'll do, the ones that are really close to you, those will get watered down, and really your relationships won't be that effective at all. Mm-hmm. So it's not only just about letting people go, but it's also holding on, and then the relationships opportunities that come their way, you may have to say no and let those go.
Mm-hmm. Why do you feel like leaders think they always have to be the person for somebody?
Because we have a God-like quality in this, right? We have this fake God thing in us. I won't get into my theological thought on this, but like human beings, like we deep inside think we can do everything. Like we feel like, oh yeah, as a leader, and it's this, and here's the thing, it's the when I say the God-like thing, it's like we think we can save everyone. That if they're not talking to me, if they're not in a relationship with me, if I'm not helping them, then oh my gosh, their whole life's ruined. Like we're Superman. Like, oh my gosh, we have to go save the damsel in distress. Like, no. Like we're not that important. We're not that we're not that supernatural, right? I think the other thing is we've built this. I love how how Scott Galloway, who is a professor, says this. He's like, we've built like tech entrepreneurs into these like deities. Like they're like the new generation Jesus Christ, right?
That's so true.
You know what I'm saying? Like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and whoever, they're like these deities, and we're like, oh my God, they can do everything. And here's what we're seeing. We're seeing the frailty and flaws of Elon. I think Elon's incredible, but we're seeing the frailties and flaws. We're seeing a man who like does what? Like they talk about, like the tech bros just go create fires and then think they're incredible because they create their own fires, and then they're like, here I come to put the fire out that I created. Mm-hmm. What we're seeing is this. Every human beings are just mere men. Like we're just mere men. One of my favorite Bible verses when it says that, who are you to be mindful of me? Like, who are you to be mindful of me? Like, this God who created, to be mindful, I'm just a mere man, that I'm here today, gone tomorrow. And so I think that's why leaders do. Leaders forget the fact they're just mere mortals, that you're here today, you're gone tomorrow. And I think that when you start to understand that in a healthy way, you can say yes to stuff and you can say no to stuff. I also think, man, we think we have the unlimited ability of time, Mm-hmm. One of the things, man, I had a health scare earlier this year, and, where at one point in time, they were like, yeah, they thought I maybe had cancer, but find out I didn't. But let me tell you this, that 24 hours or me sitting in an MRI tube alone, man, it made me realize, yeah, the stuff that matters to me. There are people, like this is why I tell people, there's certain people in my life, I'm like, no, I am unapologetically, no, I'm not meeting with you. No, it's not important to me. Because you know what I realized in that moment? You start to see what really matters. In that moment, I didn't care at all about opinions of people in that moment. I was thinking about my wife, my children. I was thinking about people like yourself, people I'm close to. Like, man, it was all about how can I invest? If it was, let's say I had something, it was like, man, you have a year to live. It was like, what would I do? Oh, it was all about how do I invest this? And the other thing too, I was like, man, I would not worry about stuff. That was my biggest thing. I started realizing I worry about the dumbest stuff that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. And so I think leaders, they do this because they don't face reality that you're just mere men. And at some point in time, you're going to die, Chief. So it's like, man, you're not that important.
In that situation with the individual you're referencing, you had the conversation. Mm-hmm. Do you always do that when there's a change in expectation?
If there's someone that's close, I'll give you another example. Someone who's a really good friend of mine, who just was put in a very high position, and we've had the same relationship for a long time. I have been a person who has been like a very close friend, someone who challenges, someone who, if I see it out, he calls it out, I call out him, he calls out me. When he took this job, I went directly to him and says, hey man, where's our relationship at now? I don't want to assume anything because now you're in a more public facing space now. And I don't want to start doing this and then you start feeling some type of way because I'm still acting the same or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we were on the phone and he was like, and he started laughing like, yo, man, fam, I feel like you're breaking up with me or something like that. And I was like, no, I was like, I just want to be upfront because what I don't want to do is like your friendship means a lot to me. And what I don't want to do is because we didn't define expectations. I know this seems like, man, we're grown men while we do this, but let me tell you, there's a lot of grown men who don't have relationships anymore because they didn't define it. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did. And he was like, absolutely not, man. He's like, listen, we're going to be the same today. And, it's like, till the day we die, this is what I expect from you. And I hope you expect this from me. And once he said that, we're good. Now, if the game changes for him, he'll have to say it to me. But like I told him, I'm going to keep applying pressure. He's going to keep applying pressure, meaning like challenging and also encouraging. And so that's kind of what, since that conversation, man, we've been the same. We talk to each other, multiple times a week. Mm-hmm. And normally it's to check in and do it. He's one of my closest friends in the world, but we had to define that. And so absolutely. So most of the times I do that with people that I'm really close to. Sometimes, if it's not somebody I'm super close to, like I just think it just plays out that way. Because here's the other thing. Some people can't handle that.
Yeah.
You say it and they're going to go to another world. So what you got to do is, again, it's just being strategic and you just got to let life do it. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah.
And it seems like there's some people you're just more willing to be involved in the process of how it will make them feel when this changes. And there's just some people where you don't have that proximity and you don't need to be emotionally involved in that way.
Yeah, because I think what some people have to understand, a lot of times, I hear this, people like, man, I just want you to keep it real with me. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you're like emotionally, you're like, and again, hear me how I say this, like you're soft. Like you don't want to hear what I have, because if I say this, you're going to feel like, man, who do you think you are that you're better than me? Like, no, I'm just trying to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean I'm better than you. Matter of fact, what it means is that, hey, I've got this going on and my wife and my children and these people right here are going to be, because I'm actually taking on so much more of this stuff in this season. Mm-hmm. So I want you to be okay with that, that if we're not hanging out how we did, because this right now has to be, I only have limited time. Mm-hmm. But people don't want to hear that at times. They say they do, but when you do that, a lot of times, and so what I look at is how people have responded in the past multiple times. And some people may not agree with this. That's fine. But I just look at your history. Like my good friend CY says, never bet against consistent behavior. It's undefeated. So if you've consistently responded this way, me coming to you, not going to be like, oh my God, you're going to miraculously do this time. You know what I mean? It's a cost-benefit analysis at times.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that some people have a greater capacity than others?
In what way? In like receiving, or are you talking about in carrying?
Generally, when it comes to just having to have priorities and having to let things go, do you think people have?
No, like some people have greater capacity for certain things. Like my wife Wendy has a great capacity for like relationship. It's freaking strange. Like, right? I mean, I feel like
she has a million friends.
She does. I mean, we had 24 freaking bridesmaids,
and they're all great. It's not like. Yeah. It's not like she just has a lot of friends.
Wendy has multiple people who say, oh, that's my best friend. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, and when I say multiple, like probably 10. There's probably 10 people like, oh, Wendy Cross is my best friend. Like, I mean, I've got like.
And it's so genuine.
It really is. And it's like when they see each other, they're just like, oh my gosh, she's the type of person, like, man, she'll be thinking about it, call them, send them a gift. Like, she has a capacity for a lot of friendships and relationships, right? I have a capacity to be able to handle and juggle a lot of stuff. Like I just do. Like I breathe. I am fed in the chaos of it, and I can move and I can do this. I mean, you got to realize, like, I mean, some people don't even handle a, $1 million thing. You know what I'm saying? We're handling a few of those things, right? And kind of managing them. I think, and then on top of that, I think doing a pretty decent job with, like, being a husband, being a father, on and on. So I think I have a higher capacity for certain things. There are certain things I don't have a higher capacity for, I look at it. I've been now on this like journey of health. Like, here's the thing. I was doing all this other stuff and I was so bad because like I was doing too much. If I could go back on it, there have been some things I would have let go so that I could have stayed more physically healthy. Even though I was getting emotionally healthy, there's a lot of things I let go. And so I think there are certain things I don't have the capacity for. But yeah, I think some people have higher and greater capacities. And I think that's one of those things about being self-aware and knowing what you got.
What are some things you wish you would have let go in the past?
Man, I wish I would have listened to my grandfather. My grandfather, who pastored for 50 years, man, he said this to me in Tallahassee. I think I was like 27. We were sitting there, and I was like, "What would you tell me?" I was like, "If you could go back on it, and if I'm in your shoes, and just in leadership in life, what would you tell me?" And he was like, "Grandson, the stuff you think is important is really not that important." And I wish I would have listened to that. I held way too much stress for stuff that's just stupid, that doesn't matter. Like, I mean, and what I mean by that, like, leadership things that I thought were so important, like, oh man, I've got to, like, this person said this, and I'm just letting it rack my brain. Okay, I got to go make that right. And, man, and then just like worrying about them or honestly taking on like the wrong or too much responsibility for other people's stuff that like I wasn't responsible for. I wish I would have listened to him, man, because I'm telling you, I think it's a lot of stuff that wore down my body. I think it led to burnout. I would have 100% would have like let that go. I think another thing I would have let go is I would have let go a long time ago people's opinions. I would have do what I do now. I have about a good solid, I got a good solid 10 to 15 people, right, that their opinion matters to me. The rest of the people can kick rocks, honestly. Like, I'm getting more and more better at this, but like that's where I'm at. They can kick rocks because here's the thing. I've got people who are very brutal. I don't live in some like insulated bubble where people don't say truth. I've got people say really hard things to me. And so if the other's not, I wish I would have, because I used to rack my brain so much with what other people were thinking. What about this? And what if they feel this way? And I'm like, and I used to try to do everything for people not to feel this way about me, that end up feeling this way about me. Because when I tried to live for people not to feel some type of way, what I was doing was like, man, I just wanted you to worship me. I don't want you to feel this way because I want you to think I'm the greatest ever. And that's wrong. At the end of the day, it wasn't about what I was saying, if I cared, if it was truthful. Or when I say truthful, like, it was actually what it was real to me. I just was like, I just want you to like me. And in the end, those same people, they just end up not liking you. It's just exhausting. And I think it wore my body out. So I would have gone back to that. I would have listened to my grandfather. And a lot of things I thought were major, man, they weren't. And I would have just majored on the majors. And the majors are never really that much, and then the minors and all those things, I'd let them go.
So at the beginning, you kind of mentioned how these things can change based off of the season. Yeah. In one of our last podcast episodes, we talked about how everyone is in a gray zone. Yep. They're in a little bit of the in-between. It's really hard to tell where you are whenever you're in that space. Yeah. How do you determine that when you're in the gray zone? Yeah. I think that when you're in the gray zone, that's that, kind of like, our last pod, liminal space, when you're in that thing. What you need to know is that it's always about what's in your hands. When you're in like that gray zone, kind of as a society, we're there. As a leader, you may be in that, if you listen to the last pod, liminal space, that space between, you really have to focus on what's in your hands right now. So whatever's in your hands, that's what season that you're in right now. So sometimes what I mean by that is like, man, you may be in a season where it's just like, you're not seeing a lot of growth in a lot of areas. Like your job, you're kind of like, man, you're not seeing the promotions. You got in and you were just rocking, right? Promotion. And now all of a sudden you're kind of like, you feel like you've been in that spot, work's a little stagnant, but the work's still in your hands. So what you have to do is be faithful. And then here's what has to change in gray zone is what expectations are. See, sometimes when you're in that liminal space, you're not seeing tons of growth, right? You're not seeing this like, man, this accelerated thing. Sometimes when you're not, you will see that accelerated thing. So I think you have to just understand what's in your hands and just remain faithful. Just remain faithful. How do you be in the notice if you're in a gray zone? Just start looking around.
Start looking around. It's like, when you're like up and to the right, you kind of know everything you kind of put your hands to just rocks out, When you're kind of in that liminal space, gray zone growth area, you may be rocking out, but there's a deeper thing going on. Sometimes circumstances are going on, right? You may unfortunately have a death. You may unfortunately, maybe hitting a rocky patch in your marriage. You may have a moment financially, whatever it is. That's when you can start seeing where you're at. Sometimes when you're in that gray zone, that season, when you're like, man, I can't see ahead. Right? Like sometimes you can, like for me in certain seasons, I'm like, oh no, I see what's 5, 10, 15 years. Some moments I'm like, dude, I don't know what's tomorrow. But again, it's like staying in that moment. I think that can actually help you.
What's one practical thing that every listener could do to apply this topic to their life?
Yeah. It's something I just have done recently. I think you need to just create a list and say, man, no more than 5. And on big themes, not like, like my baseball card collection matters. That's it's maybe important, but that's not a big theme. Like faith, that's a big theme. Work, big theme. Marriage, family, friends, big themes. I would go and I would make a list and I would think about all the things you care about. Like just try to think about all the things you care about. From everything. Like for me, man, I care about playing 2K, right? That's the thing. I would write it down. Man, I play about 2K. Man, I like to collect and smoke cigars. I write that down. Man, I like eating steak at this incredible restaurant we found here in Tallahassee called Sage. Oh my God. Anyway, sorry. Shout out to Sage.
Jealous.
Please come sponsor the pod.
All
I need, Sage. All I need is just your boy just needs just a once a week steak. You know what I'm saying?
Once a week.
Once a week. That's all your boy need, that once a week. Now, here's the deal. And so like anything that matters to you, just write it down. Man, taking care of your yawn, playing with your walking your dog, whatever. Big things, and then see, okay, where can you group them? But more than anything else, try to pick out the big themes. Like, see, oh man, you if it's like tons of stuff, like man, hanging out with my friends, man, going to this place with my friends, going on a guy trip with my friends. Okay, then relationships may be a big theme for you. And then what you do is once you can group those, no more than realistically 3 to 5, no more than 5. Then once you group them and you start saying these, or you say, man, these 5 things matter to me. Then look at your season of life, and then underneath those groupings, try to maybe have like 2 subpoints, right? So man, under like, man, what matters to me, let's say if it's faith. Okay, so what's really important to me in this season is, man, my growth, my biblical knowledge, and being at Sunday church service, like being a part. Okay, so now, or being a part of a church community. Okay, so now what all that goes. So now man, this is important to me in this season. Work. It may be, man, I'm in a growth season at work. Okay, so man, that may I'm really trying to, in this season, I'm trying to get that promotion. I'm trying to 3 times sales. I'm trying to whatever. Put that down. And now what you do is you understand in the season what you're actually focusing on. You understand your themes, because then all of a sudden somebody calls you, like, if somebody's like, hey, man, like, man, we're starting a cycling club. Like, yeah, I'm not, like, right now, I'm not joining that. Like, I don't care. Like, I get the coolest bike. You literally could give me a $2,000 bike. I'd be like, that's awesome, big dog. But like, your boy ain't gonna be out there cycling right now. Like, I just don't have time to do that. Like, I'm starting to think about, like, man, finding one of the things for me is being able to de-stress in certain things. So I'm like thinking about, do I want to start golfing again? Golf is something I loved, and I actually started getting good at it. But I started having kids, and I'm like, I could not justify being out there and I wanted to be good at golf. So I wasn't going to just play, twice a week. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to be at the driving range 2 or 3 times. Like, I can't justify having little kids at the crib and your boys out there like being like, what I'm saying, Publix brand Tiger Woods out there just hitting golf balls. I couldn't do that. So like, I had to let golf go. I mean, literally it's been, when my son Jalen was 3, so it's been like 15 years since I played golf. I'm thinking about, do I want to pick the golf club back up? But I understand, if I pick this back up, what am I giving up? Mm-hmm. We've been talking about DJing, right? I want to learn how to, but here's what I realized. Okay, I can't golf and DJ right now. There's no shot I can do that, because I've got to pick one, because I know me. If I'm not good at it and I'm not going to work to be good at it, then I don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. So I have to pick one. So those are just things of like where I would say of kind of, I'll get on a piece of paper, starting to write, and kind of go from there.
Right. That's awesome.
Sweet. Well, hey guys, I hope this was helpful for you. Again, what we try to do here is get it to a street level, just real authenticity. Why this matters in the whole thing of authenticity is we talk about self-awareness, resilience to remain self-aware. When you start overloading your schedule, overloading your life, and not letting things go, you begin to lose you. When you start putting on, you begin to lose you. You begin to lose the authentic self. And so in that, it's important to stay light, to shed things out of your life. You're only going to have a few things you can hold on to. So it's super important to hold on to those things that matter the most, and the things that don't, it's okay to let them go. That doesn't mean you're letting them go forever. It may just mean you're letting them go for just this seasons of life. It may be for 20 years, like it was for me for golf. I'm like letting it go for 15 years. I had no idea. But here's the thing. But what I promise you, when you're letting things go, you hold on and you begin to realize what you value the most, and that's where the most impact comes. So keep going, keep knocking it out, keep writing new rules.